Welcome back to Luxury Auto One, the channel where we not only bring you the latest in luxury cars and the most refined vehicles of tomorrow, but also the dramatic stories that shake the celebrity world. Today's episode is unlike any other because it is not about cars but about a legendary Hollywood figure whose recent live television appearance has left fans and critics stunned. The shocking clash between Prince Sylvester Stallone and George Stephanopoulos on Good Morning America turned what was meant to be a smooth interview into a fiery meltdown that ended with Stallone being escorted off set. In this video we will walk you through every single moment, from the calm beginning to the explosive argument, the words exchanged, the body language, and the aftermath that has since become one of the most talked about television scandals of the year. The morning began with bright lights, the cheerful music of Good Morning America filling living rooms across America, and George Stephanopoulos welcoming viewers with his signature composed voice. He teased a major guest appearance: Sylvester Stallone, the man behind Rocky and Rambo, now calling himself Prince. Sylvester Stallone was in the building. Audiences expected movie talk, training anecdotes, and maybe even a humorous story. Instead, what unfolded was a tense confrontation that no producer could have predicted. Stallone walked onto the stage wearing a sharp tailored suit that seemed to emphasize his larger-than-life presence. He greeted the crowd with a half-smile, clearly expecting applause, which he received, but as he settled into his chair across from George, he immediately corrected the host. George introduced him as Sylvester Stallone, Hollywood legend. The actor leaned in with intensity, his gravelly voice cutting through the cheerful studio atmosphere. "It's Prince Sylvester Stallone, George," he said. "Not just Sylvester Stallone." George gave a polite chuckle, trying to smooth the exchange by saying, "Well, whatever you prefer," but Stallone refused to let the comment slide. His eyes locked on George as he explained how his decades of work, his global recognition, and his cultural impact had earned him the right to be addressed with a title. This was the beginning of the end. What should have been a casual conversation about his new project spiraled into a battle of ego. George attempted to return to safe ground, asking about the movie's storyline, but Stallone interrupted, dismissing the question entirely. Instead, he launched into a speech about respect, legacy, and recognition. He argued that Hollywood had created royalty of its own and that he stood as one of its crowned figures. George shifted uncomfortably, maintaining his professional tone as he reminded Stallone that titles such as Prince were not recognized in American media. George's remark was measured, but it came across as dismissive to Stallone, whose jaw tightened visibly. What happened next turned the studio into a battlefield. Stallone leaned forward, his voice rising. He accused George of belittling him, of trying to undermine his accomplishments on live television. George countered calmly, saying that the viewers wanted to hear about the film, not a debate about nobility. Stallone's response was sharp and laced with frustration. He declared that his presence alone was bigger than any film and that George should show proper respect to a man who had inspired millions. George took a breath, looked straight into the camera, and said, "Viewers at home can decide what titles matter. Here on Good Morning America, we treat everyone equally regardless of status or self-declared royalty." The studio audience reacted with nervous laughter, but Stallone was not amused. At that moment the energy shifted. Stallone slammed his hand on the table, startling the crew members behind the cameras. George leaned back, refusing to show fear, but the tension was undeniable. The producers began communicating frantically through earpieces, debating whether to cut to commercial. George attempted to salvage the moment, asking if Stallone wanted to clarify his reasons for adopting the title of Prince, but instead of softening, Stallone doubled down. He launched into a tirade about loyalty, respect in Hollywood, and how America secretly admired figures of power and status. His words grew more heated, his gestures more animated, until finally George interrupted firmly, saying, "Sylvester, we need to keep this professional." Stallone's face darkened, the crowd fell silent, and in a voice that was both booming and unrestrained he shouted, "It's Prince Sylvester Stallone." George Stephanopoulos did not flinch. Instead he calmly replied, "Sir, this is Good Morning America, not a royal court." Stallone stood up, visibly angry, knocking his chair backward. In the process, cameras caught the moment in sharp detail as stage managers rushed toward the set. George remained seated, his expression controlled as Stallone paced before the cameras, his voice echoing across the studio. Security entered the stage as producers made the decision to cut the segment short. Stallone continued speaking loudly, accusing George of humiliating him on national television. George simply folded his hands on the desk, waiting for the chaos to subside. Finally, after a tense standoff, security gently guided Stallone off stage. The live broadcast cut awkwardly to commercials, leaving millions of viewers in shock at what they had just witnessed. But the story did not end when the cameras stopped rolling behind the scenes. Stallone was reportedly furious, shouting at producers and threatening never to appear on the network again. Crew members described the atmosphere as one of disbelief. Some were stunned that such a respected actor had let his temper explode so openly. Others quietly admitted that George's calm demeanor had only fueled Stallone's anger because it offered no validation to his demands. Meanwhile, social media lit up instantly. Hashtags like Stallone meltdown, GMA clash, and Prince Sylvester began trending within minutes. Fans and critics debated whether Stallone had been disrespected or whether he had simply let his ego get the best of him. Commentators on morning radio shows and podcasts replayed the clip, analyzing every gesture, every word, and every glance between the two men. Some called Stallone's insistence on the title laughable, while others sympathized, saying George could have avoided the escalation by simply addressing him as he wished. Newspapers the following day splashed headlines across their front pages: Hollywood royalty clashes with journalist, live on air. Sylvester Stallone stormed off GMA after fiery argument with George Stephanopoulos. The fallout grew bigger by the hour. Stallone's representatives released a statement defending his actions, claiming he had been deliberately